Hi and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we have a 2004, it's a Mazda 3 with a 2.0 liter engine. The customer complaint is today is that the check engine light is on, and sporadically it'll go on, they'll drive for a little bit, it'll turn back off, and this continues now for probably a couple of months. They did bring it in to check it out to see what it was. I scanned it to see what was going on. The code that was in there was a P126. Which means that it's a low engine temperature. Excuse me. Okay. All right, you just pull it right up on the side right there, right with you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, business calls. Yeah, so it's a P126, and what that does is it tells me that there's a sustained low engine temperature. When I scanned it and went into the data stream, I see that when that light came on, it was traveling at a very high rate of speed. It was like 60 plus miles an hour. The engine temperature was only 158 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and replace the thermostat. I did let it run to see what the actual temperature went up to, and well, this was yesterday. The temperature it went up to is 174 degrees, which is way too low for a car, you know that. Normal engine temperature is somewhere around 190, 200, 210, somewhere in that range. The problem is if the engine doesn't reach its temperature where it's supposed to within a set period of time, it doesn't go into closed loop properly, and you wind up burning more fuel than you need to, and it creates a whole bunch of other issues. All right, so let me bring you in. I'm going to show you what to do. This thermostat is a little bit of a pain in the rear end to get to. It's a tight squeeze. And I don't know if you've ever done one of these before. Obviously, you're looking at this video, so probably not. These Mazdas actually, you can't buy just the thermostat itself. With this particular car, you need to buy the plastic housing, and the thermostat is actually part of that plastic housing. So, all right, let me bring you up there. I'm going to show you what to do, and I'm going to explain step by step what I'm going to do, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and you're going to come along for the ride. So, all right, I did drain the antifreeze out of this already last night before I left. I drained it, so that way it's empty already. And, all right, let me bring you in and show you what to do. Now, obviously, I'm going to have better lighting. I'm going to move the vehicle up onto the lift area to show you what it is. But the thermostat itself is actually right down in there where those two hoses connect onto. So from what I recall, and I will look it up on the computer just to make sure, what I do recall on this one here is obviously we're going to remove this cover, which just pulls right off. This cap is off because, like I said, I drained it out yesterday, which you're going to find is a real pain in the rear end to do. Actually, let me just explain to you right now. Down on the very bottom, down there, is the drain valve. It's made of plastic, it doesn't turn, and it's probably going to wind up breaking. The way I drained it is down on the very bottom. You see that hose down there? I pulled that hose off and drained the system out right through there. Once it was drained, I reattached it, and now the system is totally empty. The reason you want to drain it before you take anything off of there is, as you can see, where these hoses are, right down inside here. See where these hoses are right here? Down directly below that, what do you see right there? That's the alternator. You really don't want to have all that antifreeze running down into your alternator, or you'll be changing your alternator within a very, very short period of time. All right? Okay, back to what we're going to do. This cover is going to come off. We are going to remove this fan belt right here, and we are going to take this tensioner out so we can get down inside there. Because even if we were able to get in there to get the bolts out, we're not going to get that housing out through this opening area right here. So we are going to take that tensioner assembly out of the way. It sounds like it's a pain in the rear end. It's really not that bad. So, all right, let's move it up into the lift area, and we're going to continue. Okay, I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see. I'll try to do it the best I can. This cover right here, we just pull this cover right off. It's not a big deal. You just lift it right here, and you pull it, and it comes out of the way like this. Disconnect your battery. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect this tensioner right here. We're going to take that fan belt off. If you see the belt down there and you think you're going to remember how it goes, fine. If not, draw yourself out a little schematic so you know how to put that belt back on. All right, Now, the way you're going to release the belt is you just put a wrench on the tensioner like this, and you pull it, not a big deal, and it releases. Now, sometimes these are a little bit of a pain to do, because you try to pull this back and take the belt off and it gets jammed up. Take it off the water pump down on the bottom right here. Pull it back, pull it off the pump, and then you release the belt all the way back like that. Now, we're not going to take this totally out. We're just going to leave the belt in here for now, just out of my way. And then we're going to take off the tensioner right here. You can see there's probably three 13 millimeter bolts. We're going to remove those. Now, you can get in there with a straight ratchet, or you can get in there with a flexible ratchet. You guys know I love my flexible head ratchet, so that's what I'm going to use. Hey, it's funny, before when I was talking to you on the camera, one of my customers came in and they looked at me like they thought I was losing my marbles. There was nobody in the shop except me, and I'm talking, and they thought I was insane. So, all right, I was wrong. That's a 12 millimeter. All right, so those bolts are actually 12 millimeter bolts. You can break them loose, and they do come out pretty easy once you break them loose. This is why I like my flexible head ratchet, because it gives you so many different angles. You get in there a little bit easier. Obviously, you want to make sure that all these bolts are the same length, so when you take them out, just match each one of them up to make sure that it's the same length. Oh, that noise you heard was me putting the bolts in my tray, so that way nothing gets lost. It's a magnetic tray that holds all the bolts and any kind of small tools, so that you don't lose anything. Worst thing that can happen is you drop one of these bolts down in there, and then you're going to try to find it. All right, so all the bolts are the same, so we don't have to worry about that. We're just going to put this off to the side for now. Listen to that. We're going to recommend to this customer we're going to change this tensioner as well. It's pretty bad. So you know what? I'm just going to order a new tensioner for it. You know what? Hang on one second. Let's see what time it is. 8:06. All right, let me call the parts store and let me order a tensioner for it. We'll be right back. I was actually kind of surprised how much that tensioner assembly is. I mean, my cost on it was almost $105. List on it was well over 200, so we are going to change it because it is no good. So even though it's expensive, we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. Worst thing is you do a job, you don't put everything on the way it's supposed to be, and you wind up doing the job a second time anyway. So I don't know if you can see it pretty good inside there. Hopefully you can. And what we're going to do next is we're going to remove these two hoses right here. Those are just the kind of clamps that you just squeeze them. They're a little bit of a pain in the rear end sometimes to do, but you just squeeze them together and you can just pull it back onto the hose and let it go. Same thing back here. The hose on the lower hose is a little bit more difficult. We're just going to go this direction with that clamp towards the thermostat, to the engine itself, because unfortunately those hose clamps don't come off real well because of the piece that it fits onto. I'll show you. This is the new one here. You see how it has this lip right here? It's a little bit difficult to try to get that hose clamp over that lip right there. So what I did is I slid that hose clamp over this way, and we'll put it back on later on that direction. All right, this is what I was telling you about, the entire assembly. The thermostat is actually bonded to the housing itself. Looks like it's expensive. It's not. It was actually fairly cheap. It already comes with the gasket inside here. so no need to try to put a gasket on here. It's right there. This, as you can see, fits just like this. We have 3 bolts. We have to remove this one, and this one. They look like they're probably about 8 millimeter. I'm going to get in there with a 1/4-inch ratchet to try to remove them, if I can get in there with a 1/4 inch. If not, I'll break them loose with a 3/8. All right, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull these hoses off of there. Now, after you take those clamps off, the hoses are going to be tight. If you get on here with a pair of pliers and just rock the hose and twist it a little bit, it makes it a little bit easier when it comes off. So I'm going to take my light out of here. I'm going to pull these hoses off, and then I'm going to bring that light right back in for you. It is really tight, as you can see. I'm going to get in there with a pry bar. We're going to try to get it to push off. We're just going to get back behind that clamp, behind the hose, and we're going to try to push it just to get it to move a little bit. It breaks it loose, and then hopefully we can twist it and pull it out of there. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and I'm betting we are going to get it off. I just saw it move now. So now that we got it to move, we just grab the hose and rock it and pull it off at the same time. Now, you know, I did say I drained this whole system out yesterday. So if you didn't drain your system, you're going to have a problem. Make sure you drain it. Don't pass up that step. All right, now we're going to try to get that lower hose to move. It's a little bit tight there. We just want it to move just a little bit, and then we'll get back in there, and we'll rock it and pull it off. So you rock the hose and pull at the same time, and it comes right out. Okay, let me just change my gloves and we'll come right back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now once we have this all the hoses are both off, we're going to take that band clamp, and we're just going to take this out of here. We're going to reuse this probably later. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the thermostat housing now. I'm going to take that off. Now I am going to get in here with a 3/8 drive ratchet. I'm going to break each one of the bolts loose. I hope you can see what I'm doing in here. It's a little bit of a tight spot. So we're just going to break them loose. A lot of times it's such a tight spot, you really go by feel. Sorry, at some point I know my battery went dead, and I wound up losing you, but I'll continue. Okay, I don't know how much of it you actually missed, but what I did is I got in here with a longer extension like this to get these bolts out. I loosened them up, and now we're just going to take them out. You always want to make sure that the bolts are the same length. Make sure where they come out of so you know. And as you can see, all the bolts are not the same. Let me just show you real quick. You see the difference? See? One bolt is actually different than the other. That's why I always tell you, make sure which bolt comes out of which hole. This one is the bolt that's all the way on top over there. So we know where that goes back in. Now after we've done that, I'm going to break the thermostat housing loose, and just in case there's any antifreeze in there, you're going to take it off slowly so that you don't get all the antifreeze going into the alternator, which doesn't really matter too much, but you want to minimize any kind of fluid going into that. Obviously, I do have a bucket underneath this vehicle to catch the antifreeze so that we don't have a mess. And then once it finishes draining, we're going to pull it off, and I'm going to show you how we're going to clean it up. All different ways of cleaning it up. You can get in there with a long handle scraper, but as you can see, it's a little bit difficult. You can get in there with a short handled scraper, or you can get in here with a little razor blade scraper like this. So it depends on which one works better, and if you don't have that at home, you can use just a regular razor blade. All right, so now that it's finished draining out, let me take this housing off. And then we'll pull out our thermostat housing. And now we're just going to clean this up a little bit inside here. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze in there, so I'm going to use the smallest to clean it up. We have that off. We're going to install our new housing. It just goes on like this. I put it on dry. I don't add any kind of sealants or anything like that to it. Now you're going to catch each bolt just by like a couple of threads. You're not going to screw it in tight. You're just going to catch them. I screw it down just till it's snug, just enough to hold it. And with that, I'm going to grab the phone. That's Mrs. Jim, the car guy, so don't go nowhere. I'll be right back. Okay, now remember, we had the smaller bolt, which is up in that right-hand corner right there, so we're going to reinstall that bolt in its correct location. All right, now, I am going to tell you this, be careful, because you're tightening a very small bolt into a plastic housing. It doesn't have to be real tight, it's just got to be snug. Then we're going to go back over all three of them just to make sure that they're tight. Okay, they're all tight. Now I used a 3/8 ratchet. I would recommend you use a 1/4 inch ratchet so you don't break anything. All right, now after we have that together, all right, so now we have the housing is back on. We're going to reattach the hoses that we took off before. But as you recall, this clamp was on the housing all the way up in here. And that's where I'm going to put it on, because it's going to be a little easier to do this later on, to slide it onto the hose. All right, now we'll put the hose back on to the new housing. Push it up all the way. And then we're going to get in there with a pair of pliers, And we're going to slide that clamp back onto the hose. These hose clamps are a little bit of a pain, but they are nice because they actually hold the hose fairly tight, and it's got constant pressure. Back on like that. I don't know if you can see that too well. You see how it's right back on where it came off. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide that other hose back on where it came off. And then we're going to get in here with pliers and slide that clamp back into its original position. I hope you can see what I'm doing there. I'm trying to get the light in it the best I can. Okay, so now let me bring you in there, I'll show you real quick. See? So everything is back on. Our hose clamp is back in position. The other hose is back on where it belongs here, the smaller hose. 3 of the bolts are all tight, and that's pretty much about it. Next thing we're going to do is going to reattach our tensioner on here, but we do have to wait for it to get here from the parts store. So once I have it in hand, we'll come right back. All right, coffee break is over. My part just came in, so let's put it back together and put the belt on, and we'll wrap this job up. All right, here we go. Let's get this job wrapped up and on to the next one. We'll see if we have something else we can film today. All right, tensioner. There's only one way you can go on. You can see right here. Put it in here like this. I just want to point this out. You have these little tiny tabs right here that actually fit into those pieces right there. So now if you recall, all of these bolts were all the same size. So it doesn't matter where any of them go. You catch every one of them by hand first before you tighten anything up. All right, keep that thought, okay? Okay, and catch all 3 bolts in there before you tighten anything up. Make sure you have all 3 of them screwed in so that they're that is not twisted or cocked one direction or another. And then once you have all of the bolts in there snug, you can tighten them all up. Now remember, you're screwing into aluminum. You don't want to over tighten it and strip out the screws, the aluminum threads. Otherwise you'll be doing some helicoils on there, and you really don't want to do that. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to reattach our fan belt. Now remember the fan belt, we put it up on top right here. You know what? You got to get a different wrench, different size pulley. This one is actually a 13 millimeter. Now remember, we're going to go this direction with it to get the belt back on. So we're going to take the belt, make sure it's still in place down there where it came off of. I'm going to pull the belt back up on here. That's a little tight to get your hands in there, but basically we're going to take it off the water pump, put it around the pulley like this, and now as you can see, I'm holding that belt down there with my finger. Go on here with your wrench, pull it back. It's a little tight, like I said. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but they do make a longer tool to take the tension off this here. but this one is not really too bad to do. It's on. I'm just making sure that the belt is on the pulley for the alternator. And I'm going to bring you in there. I'll show you what it looks like so you can see a little bit better. See? Make sure that your belt is on the alternator pulley down there and it's not off. The belt is on the tensioner correctly. And of course, I don't know if you're going to see this, it's on the crankshaft down on the very bottom. Alright, so we have everything put back on. We put the hose clamps back on here. We tightened up the housing, which the 8mm bolts for the plastic housing. We have the tensioner back on and tight. We also have the belt back on. Now we're going to fill it up with antifreeze, and then we're going to let it run and road test it. So let's grab some antifreeze and continue. Okay, this is the cover that we previously took off. We're going to put that cover back on. It's not really a big deal. It's just the cover pops back on to these little holes right here. We just put it on like this, line it up, and push it down. Okay? Let's put some antifreeze in here, and we're going to finish this off. Okay, now we're just going to continue filling it. As you can see, all the bubbles are coming out. So we're going to fill this up. When it's full, we'll come right back. Okay, now that we got the antifreeze full, right up to the full mark, we're going to let the vehicle run, and we're going to let it run until it actually heats up and the cooling fans come on, just to make sure that all the air is purged out of the system. Okay, now before you take the vehicle out and drive it, just rinse everything down. If there's any kind of antifreeze underneath there, you probably want to wash that all down. So we'll wash it all down, and then start it up and let it run until all the air is purged out of the system. Okay, now we're going to start it up, and we're going to monitor the engine temperature. We'll make sure it goes up to the normal operating range. And that's it. Let's start it up. We'll let it run for a while, and we'll see how it warms up. It should come up to about almost 200. So, all right, we'll let it run for a while, and then we're going to come right back. We're warming up nicely. It's running about 100 degrees right now, and we're just going to go underneath the hood to make sure we have no leaks there, and we'll continue monitoring it. As you can see, well, you can see it's wet there. It's because obviously I rinsed down all of that antifreeze out, that residual antifreeze that was in there. I washed everything down on the bottom, and as you can see, it looks very good. All right, we're going to watch the level. As you can see, our antifreeze is still above the maximum just a little bit. All right, we're going to let it run for a little bit, and then we're going to continue. All right, that's actually a really good sign, 204, and we're actually almost halfway. So we're just going to let it run a little bit more, make sure the cooling fans come on, and then we're going to take it for a road test to make sure it's okay. All right, that's what we're waiting for, make sure that fan comes on. All right, if you run into any problems, you need any advice or whatever, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.